So I'm going to be recording these. That's what the camera here is for. If that bothers you in terms of your voice being online, you're probably not going to be recognizable. But anyway, just note that the classes are being recorded and that they'll be available on YouTube so that you can go back and review the material. So you don't have to sit there and scribble down everything I say. You'll be able to go back and rethink about the discussions. If there's a point that you wanted to quote from class and address maybe in a writing or something, you can go back and you can actually get the actual things that were said, and that way you can be accurate in your responses and so on. This is a sort of an above and beyond class, right? It's not necessarily tied to your major. We're not here training you to do a specific task. Like in analytical chemistry, we have to teach them to test your drinking water so that it's safe to drink, and so we stay focused on that task. But this class, we can meander a little bit, but that also brings uncertainty in you, like what's expected. And so each week, you'll have a small one-page writing assignment, at least for the first 5 weeks that I'm in charge of. And this isn't going to be some like major research paper, but really to get you to engage the readings. I've already put up 3 readings, really in a small one-pager, and it's maybe a fair amount of material to get through. And it's written in 1952, so the vocabulary might be a little different than what you're used to, but that's okay. Hack through it. One thing I want you to focus on is the first 2, the science and the religion one. The philosophy we'll cover next week, or maybe even the following week, okay? And what those readings are, they're kind of like encyclopedia entries. So this person, Adler, went through, he called it the great books of the Western world, and he went through from Aristotle all the way up to modern times in his day, Freud and those folks. And he pulled out of their writings, if they ever said anything, say, about science, then he pulled the quotes from their writings on science. And he pulled quotes from their writings on religion, or beauty, or art, or taxes, or you name it. The topics that he pulled out, he went through all of these books. In fact, they probably called him the most well-educated man in the 20th century, because he had read through all of these works, looking for themes in all of them. And he compiled that in what's called the Syntopicon. And so I thought, if nothing else, having you engage in the thoughts of all of those writers, going all the way back to Aristotle, is a healthy thing to do for an honors student. That you're not just focused on your particular discipline, but that you know something, and at least know the names of Compte and Hegel and Hume and Aristotle and Plato, and that you will have read quotes by them and engaged with those quotes. So the writing assignments will be something like this week, where I say in the writings, like in the science writing, there's 15 or 20 people quoted here. Go through there and find a quote that you found interesting. Okay? Your first paragraph will be essentially introducing that quote, and then essentially responding to that quote. What do you find interesting about that quote? How is it relevant to the topic of science or religion, depending on the reading? And then what is one thing in that quote that you maybe want to know more about? Like there's a word that's used, or a topic, or a concept that you would want to ask that person. And so it's really simple, 3 or 4 paragraphs to write. But what it does is really gets you to think, if I could engage this person on this thing that they said, what would I ask them? And what would I seek from this person? So when you're reading these different materials that I give you, be thinking about that. Be thinking about your own response to it, and thinking, do you understand what they're saying? If not, what questions would you ask? Most of this course is going to be about questions and asking good questions, rather than just stating your opinions. So we'll have a lot of discussion, but it will be more seeking the right questions to ask, not you giving your opinion and you giving your opinion. Because myself included, we just haven't had that many experiences, and so our opinions are less informed. I mean, I'm a pretty narrow person when it comes to chemistry and religion, but as far as philosophy or art, or there's a lot I can learn in other areas. And so me giving my opinion on art is probably not going to be very useful to you. And unless you've really studied science as a topic or religion as a topic, your opinion might not be helpful. It's yours, but I'd be more interested in your questions. Like, what is it about that topic that mystifies you? Or what do you think you understand, but is said in a different way by this person in this writing? So let's jump into the material. Dr. Kaminska was talking about how her husband is a chemical engineer, and he was like, science and religion, why even have that course? Like they're totally opposite things and not even related to each other. And so that's why I wanted to talk about it in the very first lecture, is from BFFs to frenemies. Okay, so what is going on with science and religion? And so whenever we're talking about topics like this, you've heard of ADT, security, find security with ADT. Well, ADT stands for always defined terms. Okay, so what do we mean by science? What do we mean by religion? But let's start with the other parts of the title. What do we mean by BFF? Right, best friends forever. Okay, so science and religion were at one time best friends forever. Okay, you may not have known that, And so what happened to the relationship? And so then they became frenemies. Well, what on earth is a frenemy? So you go to the Urban Dictionary, and a frenemy is a person in your life, usually a friend or coworker that you get along with and enjoy overall, but will cut you down with virtually any opportunity. Has anybody had anybody like that in their lives? You're kind of friends, you hang out with them, but they're always trying to get one up on you. They always have to point out that they're better than you or what have you. There's a little bit of antagonism there, but you still kind of get along. And so that's kind of the description of religion and science right now. They kind of get along as long as they are staying in their own domains, but as soon as one tries to get into the other person's business, then they're enemies. And so that's a good description of the status quo right now between science and religion. So this is worthy of discussing. How did this come about? Is this your experience? And so now let's go ahead and open it up. Is this describe what you've experienced in the topics of science and religion or not? So I take a volunteer. Do you think they mix or not? Go ahead. Go ahead.
I feel like they sometimes do.
Okay.
And sometimes don't.
Okay.
Like a person that's religious will want to follow, a religious route.
Mm-hmm.
While a person for science just wants to go out there and seek for answers.
Okay.
And they don't quote what scripture says about how life can be.
Okay.
Science person will mostly say the world started by Adler by the Big Bang theory.
Okay.
While a person in religion would say a person that's a supernatural thing came to make life on earth.
Yeah, and it's interesting because you bring up a point of like a supernatural event and then like a naturalistic event, something that's just say physics and matter. And so we're going to definitely talk about those and to see if they're mutually exclusive, if they're different domains, if you have a supernatural domain and then a physical domain, or if they're interspersed with each other. So that's definitely a topic that we'll talk about. And there's a lot of heat between those two camps. Like I said, whenever they try to get into each other's business, what I mean by that, there's a fellow called Stephen Gould, you may have heard his name. He said that religion and science have non-overlapping, he called them magisteria or domains. A magisteria, like a magistrate, like a person who's in charge of a county or a region, they have a border and they're in charge of everything inside that border and nothing outside that border. And he was saying science has a border where it's in charge and religion has a border where it's in charge. That's his opinion. And a lot of people like that. But then we see that science makes claims about things that are in the religious border and religion makes claims about things that are in the science border. And so that does break down in some cases. Some other people's experiences in terms of science and religion. We got to get to know each other by talking, so that's the way it'll work. Yeah, exactly. Yes, go ahead.
I have family members who believe that religion is more of the story and science is the explanation of the story.
Okay.
So they aren't necessarily separate, but could coincide.
Yeah, that's an interesting way to put it, that the story and then the explanation of the story. Which was which?
Religion would be more of the story and science is like the explanation about how it happened.
Yeah, because I could see it the other way as well, too, that science is the story where you have, the behavior of atoms and molecules, but religion telling you the why. the explanation of it. So it could go either way in my thinking. And so that's pretty cool. What else? Reactions to that? Which do you think it is? Does science explain what's going on with religion, or vice versa?
It could be either or.
Yeah, good. Psychologists would say that our minds are atoms and neurons firing, and that we invented religion to give ourselves explanations. And so in that case, science is trying to explain religion and not the other way around.
Whereas religion would say it's more of a supernatural, immaterial sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and so this is you brought up a good word, immaterial. This word will be very important throughout the course because just because something's not material, it doesn't have mass, it doesn't take up space, it doesn't have a definite location. Some would say then it doesn't exist, and others would say that it may exist, it's just immaterial. So whether something that's immaterial exists or not is actually an open question. And so we will discuss that as well. Are these topics new to you? I mean, I see some people with furrowed brows. Is this discussions that you have had already with your friends, with your peer group, or not? So let me have raise a hand for people who, these topics that we've just covered, the 3 or 4 things that we've talked about. Raise your hand if these are brand new to you. Okay, excellent. So people are engaging in this kind of thinking, at least informally. So let's move on to the definitions of science and religion. These are not so easy, as you might imagine. I mean, you look at the readings that we have. It's 10 pages, 2 columns. Okay, and it's just quote after quote of different people's opinions about the things, and their opinions conflict. I don't know if you picked that up. There's a whole camp of saying one thing about science, and then a different camp saying different things. And so he went through all of these different things. So let's discuss, before we get into definitions, let's back up a little bit and discuss what we mean when we use words. Okay, so this is a philosophical part of the course. So there's really 3 main disciplines for finding truth. One of them is science, one is religion, but before both of those was philosophy. So philosophy and theology went together for quite a while, and then science was added in as they started to see that mathematics could describe the natural world. And so science was actually originally called natural theology. It was a branch of theology because the study of God and the study of philosophy and how things worked were the primary sources of seeking truth. That's the Greek philosophers and so on. And then as they started to describe the world around them, they got into natural theology. So let's discuss concepts, terms, and words. So anytime we have a discussion, we have our brains, our minds, we're thinking of what we want to say, and we use words, okay? And those words are what we call tokens. The token is the universal thing, the word is not. That's why we use different words to try to describe what we mean. And the terms are not necessarily clear to each person because each person has a concept related to each of those terms. So with these 3 things, this is the source of the confusion we have when we communicate. Okay? We can only use words, but when we use the words, we're describing a term that hopefully is universal between all of us. But then you have a subjective meaning for that term, and you have a subjective meaning to that term. So the concepts are our personal, private feelings about a particular term. Let me use an example. I love mustard, and I love my wife. What's weird about that?
There's 2 sort of different things.
Yeah, what's different in that case? The word is the same, but the term is different.
Right.
And so when we're describing our words, it's not enough to say this word means this word means that. Love can mean 2 different things. I love the taste of mustard, okay? I love my wife with all kinds of my mental and, my time and my money and everything. I mean, I'm devoted to her. So that's totally different than mustard. I'm not devoted to mustard. I just like it on bread, okay? So I use the same word, but I have a totally different term. Now, love in terms of with my wife, that is a different universal term. Now, even though that term's universal, and what do I mean by universal? It means it's the same term no matter what language we use. Amor, You know, we have all of these different terms or words that we use to describe the same term, love. And then each individual has a different relationship with that term. So when I think of love for my wife, I think of sacrifice, I think of affection, I think of all of these things that go with that term love. Okay, she might have a different personal experience with that word. You know, you've maybe heard this book talking about the love languages. You know, a person experiences love when they get gifts, or another person experiences love when they have personal touch, or another person experiences love when there's time spent with them. And so that's the sort of the concept-term relationship. But we still have to communicate with words. Now, one thing I noticed as well, and this will be important when we get into the art, this is also related to the English part of this course, but when we get to the art part of the course, we can replace words with other things. Body position, okay? I'm like this. I'm communicating to you, but I'm not using words, okay? And so that's what we're doing with dance and visual arts. We're still communicating. We're trying to communicate the universal terms, but instead of words, we're using images, we're using body position and so on, rhythm, same with hearing, with music, and so on. So the ways we communicate can be broken down into these things. So this is that first things first reading. So the concept exists only privately in an individual mind. So that's your concept that you have related to the terms. The term is in the public domain. A term expresses objectively what is known subjectively in a concept. A concept is that person's subjective knowledge of the meaning of the term. And then a word or group of words forming a phrase that's less than a sentence is the linguistic expression of a term. So the difference between a term and a word is the difference between what is common to all languages and what is different in all languages. For the same term, the same unit of meaning is expressed in different words by different languages. Languages are man-made, conventional, changeable, but terms are not. That's why it's possible to translate between different languages, because the stable term is the thing that's universal, but the words are the things that we change. So, you know, the words love, caritas, agape, amor, you know, this is love in many different languages, but that term is universal between all of the languages. And then each person has a subjective experience with that word. So with that, the point is it's difficult to communicate. When I say science, I'm using the word science. There's a universal term out there, science, and then you have a subjective reaction to it. Some people are very suspicious of science. They grew up in a small community of thinkers that think science is the enemy. Okay? Other people love science and think it's the only way to know truth. So they have two subjectively different concepts when they hear the word science. So same with religion. Some people are suspicious of religion. You know, they maybe have had a bad experience with religion, and so they want to know, you know, what's going on with that. And other people, religion is their frame. That's how they see everything around them. So let's dive into some of the concepts. This is the reference for this treatment of communication. It's in Socratic Logic by Peter Kraft. And so using these words and concepts, what are some of the words that come to mind with the term science? So this is your part of the course. What is it that you think of? And let's try to keep the words, you know, to just a few words. You could use a phrase. Okay. Research. Okay, let me go ahead and type some of these in. Or I'll do them on the board. How's that? And then, of course, we could take each of these words and define them further. But let's just list the words and see what we've got. Experiment. Okay. Let's keep one. Let's do one each.
I think about like the different types of it, like biology and chemistry.
Okay. Let's yeah. So those are these sub-disciplines. How do I capture that? I like it though. I want to capture how it views, it's specialized. How about that? Specialized?
Specialization.
Yeah, specialization. We can fit 19 words on here, so, or 17, however many are here.
Here.
Theory?
Yeah.
Okay, theory. Yeah, that's fine. We can come back to you. Who else has one? Yes? Hypothesis? Okay, great. Yes? Trial and error. Okay. And that kind of goes with experimentation to see how it's going to work. Okay. Yes?
Observation.
Observation. Excellent. Have you done one yet? Okay. Methodical. How's that? Yeah. Methodical. Yes? Ever changing. Interesting. Adaptive. Can I do that? Yeah, adaptive. The reason I changed it is I wanted to kind of capture how it's changing for a purpose, right? It's adapting. Yeah, as opposed to like ever changing without purpose. So I was trying to capture that adapt piece. That's great. What do we have? Who's holding out on us? You ready yet?
I mean, I was gonna say evolution, which can be with adaptive,
Yeah.
because it's like evolving as it progresses, but it gets truth seeking and gets trying to find what's out there.
Yes, truth seeking. I like that. We don't have that one yet. Got room for a few more. Yes.
Empirical.
Empirical. Excellent. And so it's empirical is kind of like observation and trial and error. They describe experiment. So it's another way to describe that with maybe a little more purpose to it. Let's do one more. How about you? What have you got? Analytical. Yes, analytical. Very good. So here's, again, more words that describe the term science. So science, again, is something that is a way to seek truth. Okay? It's focused on empirical observation. It's experimental. It's trial and error, like you're actually doing something. It's adaptive. And so if the method doesn't work, you change it, and so on. Is there anything missing? So the quiet ones that have been watching this and saying, I would have said this. What's missing from our... Anything? Yes?
Curiosity.
Curiosity? I like that. Yeah. Curiosity. Yeah, so this sort of truth-seeking thing doesn't have to be dry and stodgy. It can just be, what will happen if I try this? That was my first chemistry kit when I was an elementary school kid. I mixed everything to everything. It said explicitly not to do that. But I wanted to see all the color changes and if something bubbled or what have you, if it heated up. Of course, yeah, it was out in the front sidewalk. And then I poured it on the big red ant bed. So everything that I did went on the ant bed. Yes?
A couple of names come to mind for me.
Yes?
Like I would just say Neil deGrasse Tyson.
Okay, so scientists.
Yes.
Yeah. Excellent. How do we capture scientists? Because there's a lot of them. It's a human endeavor, right? So, yeah, let me think. Yeah. Let me just say scientists. How about that? So scientists. Oh, can't spell. put an exclamation point by that. Because science doesn't say, you hear people, science says, blah, 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 blah. Scientists say. And scientists are human. They have a perspective. And so that's something that's important to remember. So I'm so glad you got that, because we do have scientists, and scientists don't always agree because it's a human endeavor. So that's fantastic. So let's look at some of the things from the reading. We have theory-based here, theory, and we have experimental. And this is a clue as to what happened with our friends becoming frenemies. Is which one of these is on top of the other? Like, which is more important, the experimental results or the theory? Okay, so let me try this. So we'll do a little poll in class here. And so if you say experiment is more important than theory, think about it, don't answer just yet. You're going to hold up one finger. Okay, and if you think theory is more important than experiment, you'll hold up two. But that way everybody's holding up a hand, because otherwise you sit there and wait, and nobody raised their hand, so you're not raising your hand. Okay, so one finger for experiment is grander or more important, and two for theory is grander or more important. Okay, so one or two, count of three, and hold them up so I can kind of get a poll for the class. And this is no right answer on this one. Okay, so experiment 1, theory 2. Okay, ready, go. I see 1s and 2s. Okay, good. It is about an even split. Okay, and so look at that split. Thank you. Between the theory and the experiment being like the governing body, right? Some would say experiment's the governing body, and some others would say theory is the governing body. And there's arguments between those two. Okay, so here we have Aristotle, 384 to 322 BC. He defines science as the certain demonstration of universal and necessary conclusions from self-evident principles. So he's saying that the principles or the theory is the big deal, and that the experiments are the demonstrations of that. Scientific knowledge, he writes, is judgment about things that are universal and necessary. He has a very specific meaning for necessary, which we'll talk later on about what that means. And the conclusions or demonstrations follow from first principles. Scientific knowledge involves the apprehension, the understanding of a rational ground. And this rational grounding is the theory. Okay. The emphasis here is on the knowledge of causes and on the certainty and necessity of conclusions, which can be demonstrated from axiomatic truths. So Aristotle would say this is science. Oh, that's a bad one. So let's try this. He would put a huge emphasis on theory in his description of science. Okay, and so would Descartes, and so would Sagredo. I have to look him up. And their basis on that is the mathematics behind the theory. That essentially you don't even have to do the experiment because the theory tells you what's going to happen. Okay, let's look at another quote. In the 19th century, so we're up into the 1800s, Comte formulated a doctrine under the title positive philosophy. And then there were people that followed from him called positivists. Has anybody ever heard of that? Positive philosophy or positivism? Have you heard of Scientism? Not science, but Scientism. It essentially says that science is the only way to know truth. Okay? This is the beginnings of that. In the 19th century, this beginning of this positive philosophy. So let's read what he says. It explicitly declares that only the positive sciences, the study of natural, mental, and social phenomenon by empirical methods, deserve to be called sciences. By contrast, remember the other two ways of seeking knowledge were theology and philosophy. So he says, in contrast to that, philosophy is mere speculation, and religion, or theology, is superstition, a futile attempt by reason to go beyond the phenomena in order to discover ultimate causes. And so Aristotle just said that ultimate causes are the things that are the most important, and Comte is saying experimental results are the only thing that's important, and that you shouldn't even hypothesize what the ultimate causes are. Okay, so very different views of science. So this would be experiment would be Comte. And so the 19th century is when we started to see this break between religion and science, not only because of positive philosophy, but in large part because of the work of the positivists in the scientific community. There was the Ernst Mach Society and several folks with the dawn of quantum mechanics that were making some bold claims based upon their philosophy that experiment was the only thing that you could know. And one funny example of this is a couple of fellows riding on a train in Ireland, and one looks out his window and sees a black sheep on the hill, and he says, wow, they've got black sheep in Ireland. And his friend, they were both positivists, and his friend says, well, actually, you don't know that. They have at least one black sheep in Ireland. Right? The experiment only showed one sheep. And then he says, well, actually, you don't know that. They have one sheep in Ireland where at least one side is black. Because he could only see one side of the sheep. Okay. Now, the problem with positive philosophy is that, again, it shrinks the circle as to what you know. Right? He's saying you can only know that there's only at least one sheep in Ireland that has one side that's black, because that's all he could see. And so that would be an extreme case of positive philosophy, okay, in that you only know what you can test, and that you can't say anything about anything else. Okay, so therefore, some philosophical assumptions, since they're untestable, can't be given the word truth, and certainly religion, if it's untestable, can't be put in the category of true or false. It's just set in what we call the value domain. So it may be valuable to you, but you can't talk about it being true or not. Does that sound familiar to today's times? We hear this all the time. Religion, it may be valuable to you, may be valuable to me or not, but it doesn't have any claim on whether it's true or not. And so that's this positive philosophy that's gone through society in general. So we can see that today. So there's a disagreement even within science and philosophy as to what science means. Let's talk about religion. So let's list our words for religion. So what words come to mind when you think of the term religion?
Spirit.
Spirit? Okay. Okay. Yes? Faith? I heard God, right? Okay.
Scripture.
Scripture, okay. And again, this is not just Christianity, but other religions have scripture too. They have a view of God or gods, right? So this is a broad category of religion. Church? Church, yeah, church. Do not try to erase with your finger on this board. It will not work. Church, and church could be, that's kind of our American term for it, but it could be some other kind of, ritual gathering of some sort. Yeah, institutions. So, so you have religious institutions. So, organizations, religious organizations, or institutions. That's good enough. Okay. I saw another hand before I turned around. Yes.
Creation.
Creation. Okay, so that's an interesting thing. So religion says something about origins. So let me broaden the term to origins. Origins. Let's think about this. Origins, creation. It's kind of part of the things that religion explains. Yeah, but science, science does similar things too. Some people with their scientific view will also have an explanation for origins and so on. Kind of like story versus explanation we were talking about. So I'm going to put origins over here because there's some other things that a religion will explain as well or have an explanation for. So I'm going to have 4 categories here that really help capture what a religion tries to answer. Okay. Yes? Lifestyle, yes. There's two things related to lifestyle that I'd like to pull apart, okay? So who can help me with that? I don't want to give the answers. I want y'all to give the answers. So think about lifestyle and think about what you do on a daily basis. Expand lifestyle. So if we're going to draw a little tree under it, what would we put under lifestyle? Discipline? Discipline.
Like, maybe more like moral compass, essentially.
Yeah, morality was one of them. Right or wrong. So morality. So that's the origin, morality. And again, it's a broad term, religion having a say on morality. But there's another part of lifestyle too, is you're not here studying your major because of a moral question, right? But yet that's part of your lifestyle, is to come here and get a college degree. Why are you here? Yes.
Like purpose?
Yes. Meaning is the other one. I was like 2 M's, morality and meaning, but purpose, yeah. Meaning, I'll put in parentheses, purpose. Okay. This is great. Yes. Theology. So that's, let's see, where would you do that? And so I'm going to put theology, I'm going to circle that, and I'm going to point it to God, okay? Because that's really, you're studying what do we mean by the word God. Is it God's? Is it an impersonal force? Is it like the midichlorians and everything in Star Wars, right? It's God is sort of the name we use, the word we use, but really theology is the study of that, and that's part of your religion. Yes. Yes.
Tradition.
Tradition. Yes. And that's connected to church and connected to institutions and faith. I mean, tradition is connected to a lot of these things as well. Yes?
Prophet.
Prophet? Okay. Expand on that one a little bit.
Like, there's different religions have different prophets,
I think you meant
Oh, I thought you meant the money for religion. Prophet, maybe we need a PH in there too.
I'm gonna say.
Yeah, prophet and prophet. That's funny. Yeah. So both, right? So we'll put a question mark by that one. They're supposed to be non-profit, right? As our tax laws say. Yeah. And then there's one concept on here that religion really focuses on that we haven't hit on yet, and it's probably because we're a really young crowd. Yes.
Afterlife.
Yes. Destiny. Yeah, destiny. We will revisit these 4 topics along the way as we talk about worldview. And this Freud introduced this term, Weltanschauung. It's how you view the world. And you have a particular worldview that answers these questions in these main categories. Religion is one, but you can be irreligious and still have answers for these. Okay, and so you would have an idea of how, the universe came to be. You would have an idea about your moral obligations to your neighbors. You would have some sort of idea about the meaning or purpose in life, and then you'd have some idea about destiny, even if you were not religious. But certainly religions cover those things and address those things. And so let's look at some of the things from the religion writing. And I liked this because he kind of went through very similar things to what you had. This is the introduction to the religion section where he talks about to the man of faith. In fact, before we start that, let's just look at the very first paragraph in this. Check the time. And so this is on the religion excerpt. This is Adler writing. And he says argument, and again, argument is not like in your face, naysaying each other. Argument is a discussion that's sort of aimed towards understanding. Okay, so argument, meaning trying to understand each other. Argument is unprofitable, and worse than that, unintelligible when opponents do not share some common ground. Okay, and between the complete skeptic who denies reason's competence and the philosopher or scientist who appeals to it, no common ground exists. And so there are some folks that believe reason is unreliable, that it's just personal experience is everything, okay? And when they're talking to someone who's trying to use if-then logic, there's just no common ground. The discussion goes nowhere. And between a man who obeys the rule not to contradict himself and the man who finds nothing repugnant in answering yes and no to the same question, there can be no argument, okay? And so the lack of a common measure for judging opposed views tends to render them incommunicable to each other. So this is the way it is sometimes with the people who have a religious viewpoint and people who don't, is that unless there's some common ground, then the discussion goes past each other. Your words go past them, their words go past you, and there's really no interaction at all. And so it's totally unfruitful to just keep restating what you believe at each other. Okay? It's more fruitful to back up and ask questions. Try to find that common ground where you can both stand side by side. This is the best place to do arguments, is side by side with a whiteboard in front of you, where you try to figure out how your views overlap, as opposed to toe, where you're confronting each other. And so this is the beginning of the religion section, because religion is one of those things that, again, is the area where many people find they have no common ground. And so there's just no understanding to their discussions. And so this is why he says, religion to the man of faith, meaning a person who believes in a religion, usually means much more than just the acceptance of a creed. For Muslims, you say that there's one God, but Allah, and Muhammad is his prophet. That's the first part of their creed. That's like pillar one. And for Christianity, it would be like the Apostles' Creed. You go through, and God the Father, creator of the universe, and so on. And so you could mentally accept that as true, but it's more than that. Okay, and that's what Adler's saying. He's saying to the man of faith, religion usually means more than just the mental acceptance of a creed, like signing on the line and saying, yeah, I got that. He says it means act of piety or worship, recourse to prayer. So we didn't have prayer on here. That's okay. We had, tradition, maybe prayer is part of tradition and part of spirit, partaking of sacraments. That's sort of a subset of Christianity, but in these sort of ritual acts that are part of a religious tradition. And then performance of sacrifices. Now that, doesn't have to be lambs and goats, okay? Sacrificing time, sacrificing money. Basically putting it in your calendar and trumping other things is a sacrifice. A lot of people sacrifice to sports, right? I'm going to the game Saturday, even though there's other things I could do that day. I'm sacrificing my calendar to go to that game. So that's sacrifice as a broader context. And purifications, it means rendering to God what is his due, obeying his commandments, beseeching and gaining the help of his grace, and this is the key, whereby to lead a life which shall seem worthy to him, to God. Okay, so this is again a general description of someone who believes. Okay, there's another view of religion. When religion is conceived of as really just nothing but a set of beliefs, sort of a mental activity, then, it's restricted to one part of life. It may still be an important part of that person's life, but it's not the central part of that person's life. And it may or may not involve action. It's not the fabric of that whole person's life. It doesn't qualify every other part of their life. It doesn't demand inner devotion and external conduct to be in concert with each other to avoid hypocrisy. So this is two views of religion. One is sort of a social good. Like this one would be kind of a social good, where it's good to belong to a church. It's good to belong to a religious organization because it stabilizes society. It takes care of the education of the young and teaches them social skills and so on. You can think of a lot of what we would call social benefits to being a part of a religion. In fact, in the religion section, it's kind of funny, close to the back page, they're talking about the separation of church and state on the last 2 pages of this. It's really good. And John Stuart Mill carries out, he says, in Mill's opinion, it was Hegel. Hegel, on the other hand, holds that the state should require all citizens to belong to a church. But he points out that a church is all that can be said. So he's saying, it doesn't matter which church, he would require everyone to be part of a church because he's looking at the social benefits. He's saying it doesn't matter if they believe it or not. They're not interested in spirit or scripture or theology, but more tradition in helping society reach a certain goal. So he has a very utilitarian view of church, whereas someone who, earlier in the quote, the man of faith, has a whole different view of religion. So we can see that even in science, within science, there's conflict between which is higher, experiment or theory. We see even within religion, there's different views of religion, whether it consumes your whole life and gives it structure and explains all of these important topics like origin, meaning, morality, and destiny, or if it's a subset of your life where you have a religious faith, you observe certain rules and certain traditions because of the benefits to you, to your family, to your kids, to society. Totally different views of religion. And so unless you explore those foundations in the discussion with someone, you're probably going to be talking past them and they past you, unless you can figure out, we've got common ground here. And so I think that you always begin these conversations in religion and science and any other topic with good questions. And so next week, we'll be really talking about the questions that we have. So let's conclude. Definitions are not so easy because we use words, but those words describe these universal terms, and we have subjective connections to those terms. And so it takes some effort to figure out what you mean by that word and what I mean by that word, and make sure that we're using the same concepts when we talk about those words. So we talk about defining our terms, and that's the best word for it. The term is the universal. And so we may use a bunch of different words, but we're trying to get to the term that we're discussing. And questions are required for understanding. So we need to wrestle with, in science, which is universal? Is it theory? So what's an example of universal theory? Knowing the trajectory of a catapult, and what angle you shoot it at, all you need is the math. It's going to go its furthest at 45 degrees. You can prove that mathematically. You don't even need to do the experiment. In fact, you can be so confident that you can go stand 1 meter past where it's going to land and it won't hit you. Now, it might bounce. But we had the same kind of experience in physics at UT. In the physics hall, they had a big chain and a bowling ball on the bottom. Okay? And you could go stand against the wall and you could pull the bowling ball up to your chin and let go. Now, you knew in physics, you knew the theory. The theory was absolutely unassailable that it's not going to hit you, right? But you do the experiment to demonstrate it anyway, right? And you try not to flinch. So you hold that bowling ball, you let go, and that bowling ball goes swinging away, and here it comes, and it's coming right at your face, and you just can't help but flinch, okay? But it doesn't hit you because of physics, you know. And so again, the mathematicians, the folks that were focused on math, primarily were saying theory is ultimate, and the experiments are just mere demonstrations that we got the theory right. Whereas the experimentalist is saying no, experimental results are universal, and we throw the theories out. Rarely do we throw a theory completely out. We may adjust it. Okay. And then which is the frame and which is the subject? This is the idea of religion and science to some degree for some people. What do I mean by frame and subject? Look at these two pictures. On the left, we see my individual life. I'm the frame, and inside my life, I have compartments. I have a religion box. I have a science box. I have my major, my family, coffee, my degree. So my life is compartmented, but I'm the frame. And this is, I mean, a legitimate way people live. That's their picture of their life. They're the frame. Other people, religion is their frame. It's not just something they do, it's the way they see the world. Their religion is how they answer origin, meaning, morality, and destiny, and all of these other things that we put on the board. And it's more like that window that they look through. And in fact, it may not just be religion, it may just be worldview. So again, questions are important. I'm trying to figure out how to describe, you know, if your conversation partner has the left picture and you have the right picture, you're going to miss each other a lot in conversation. And so we're not here to say which one's better, but we're here to say, hey, iron out with your conversation partner what their worldview is. Is science just a part of their life, or is it everything? Is religion just a part of their life, or is it everything? And then you can have a fruitful conversation. So we'll start on questions next week. There's a reading. There's a simple assignment due Sunday night. I'm not saying you have to work on Sundays. I'm just saying that that's when it's due. Work early, turn it in early. You can do it tonight if you want. The link is live, okay? But I know how people are. They're like, oh, it's due at midnight on Sunday. He expects us to stay up late. No, I don't. I expect you to do it Friday night or, you know, Thursday afternoon, whenever. You're in control. So, all right, I'll see you on Monday.